David woke up breathing fast. He looked around and realized he was safe in his own room. The night before felt so real. The strange old man, the sacrifices, and all the dark choices he'd made in his dream. He sat up thinking about the power he loved so much. Thank God it was just a dream. He muttered, but there was a strange feeling inside him. He knew he loved being in control, having people listen to him, and being respected by everyone. It felt good to be important to people, look up to him the next morning. David, dressed in his finest suit, feeling strong and powerful. He arrived at church with a confident smile greeting his congregation. The church was full, and as he stood at the front, he felt everyone's eyes on him, listening closely to his every word during the sermon. David looked out at his members, brothers and sisters. He said in a loud, powerful voice, "I have a special message today." He paused, letting the silence fill the room. We need to expand our church. We need a new building, a bigger place, where we can all gather together and worship the people. Nodded, some even clapping in agreement. David raised his hand, calling for quiet again. But to build this house of God, he continued, we need donations. I am asking each one of you to give generously. We need 500 million naira to make this vision come true. Some people looked around whispering, and others looked surprised. It was a large amount of money. David held up his hand again, and everyone fell silent. Remember, this is for God's house, he said firmly. Even if it's your last money, I ask you to give to God. This is a holy offering. God will bless you for it. He will bless your homes, your families, and your lives in ways you cannot imagine. Some people looked worried, but David kept talking, his voice steady. Trust in the Lord. Give all that you can. This is your chance to show your faith, to show that you trust in God, to provide for you give from your heart. And you will see the blessings come back to you 100 times over. As he looked out at the crowd, he could see people reaching for their wallets, digging into their pockets, and murmuring to each other. David's heart raced with excitement. He loved this feeling, knowing that his words had the power to move people, to make them give everything they had. He watched as people came forward one by one, placing their money in the offering box. Some gave small bills, some gave large bills, and a few even took off their jewelry, adding it to the pile. David felt proud standing there as his congregation sacrificed too, make his vision come true. But as he watched the offerings pile up, he couldn't help but remember the strange dream he'd had in the back of his mind. A tiny voice asked, "Is this really what God wants? Or is it just what you want?" But he pushed the thought away, smiling and thanking his people as they gave. He felt powerful, respected, and in control. David looked over his congregation, his voice ringing out louder than ever. My people understand this. If you hold back from giving to the building of the Lord, you shall know no peace in your life. He declared his face, stern, his eyes intense. A hush fell over the church. Everyone could feel the weight of his words. If you don't have enough money, he continued, borrow it. If you have clothes, sell them. If you have gold, bring it here. Even sell your car. If you must, this is a chance to prove your faith. Some of the congregation looked at each other with wide eyes, uncertain, but listening closely. David's words echoed through the building as he raised his hands, his voice filled with conviction. The Lord will bless you for this. He will see your sacrifice and reward you. Your life will be transformed in ways you can't even imagine if you make this offering from your heart. A few people nodded, while others seemed hesitant, fidgeting in their seats. But David's powerful tone and unwavering gaze held them. He continued, "This is a test of faith. Think of the blessings that will rain down upon you. What's a little sacrifice? Now, if it means a lifetime of abundance, trust in the Lord's plan for you." Some members stood up, moved by his words, already reaching for their belongings. Looking ready to do as he'd asked, an elderly woman clutched her worn handbag. Her hands shaking as she pulled out the last few bills, she had a young man, uncertain, but feeling the power of David's words, whispered to his wife, "Maybe we should sell the car." "It's for the Lord." David watched with satisfaction, a proud smile spreading across his face. His words had ignited a fire in his followers. He felt in control, powerful, and respected. After the service, a few church members gathered quietly outside, glancing around to make sure no one overheard. Heard one woman sighed, shaking her head in frustration. This man David, who calls himself a prophet, he's always talking about money every Sunday. It's another donation, another offering, yet he never seems to give anything back to us. His own church members look at the mansion he lives in, the fancy cars he drives, and the expensive suits he wears. Does he even help anyone in need around here? Another member nodded, her face troubled. Exactly. Some of us can barely afford food. Yet he's asking us to empty our pockets every week. Does he even know what it's like to struggle? Meanwhile, he's living in luxury, while some of us have to decide between giving to the church and feeding our children. A man in the group added quietly, "My wife and I gave everything we could for that last offering, but since then, we've been struggling even more. My wife thinks we're just not praying hard enough, but I don't know. I feel like something is off. How can this be God's will?" Another woman whispered, "My husband has been warning me about this church. He says it's not right that any real prophet wouldn't be living so high and mighty while his people suffer. He told me to stop coming here, but I kept believing that maybe David was truly blessed. I'm starting to wonder if I was wrong." The first woman sighed deeply, her face filled with sadness. "I think I might stop coming too. I only stayed to see the miracles, to see if it really has God's power, but lately even the miracles feel strange. I don't feel closer to God here. I just feel pressured." The man shook his head. Slowly. "Maybe he is blessed. Maybe he's not. But I don't understand how he can ask so much from people who have so little. Isn't a true leader supposed to care for his people, to lift them up when they're down?" They all fell silent, looking back at the church building, feeling a mix of doubt and disappointment. What had once felt like a place of hope now felt uncertain. They exchanged glances, each lost in thought, questioning everything they had once believed about prophet David. David got home, his face calm, but inside he was still shaken from the dream. He stepped into the living room and his wife anointed. Immediately noticed the tension in his eyes. "Honey," she said softly, reaching out to him. "What happened last night? I heard you screaming in your sleep. You were tossing and turning so much I was worried." David hesitated, forcing a small smile to cover his unease. "Oh, it was just a bad dream," he said. Choosing his words carefully, the devil tried to make me leave God. He wanted me to abandon my faith, to let go of the path God has called me to. But I didn't give in. I fought back. I defeated him. The devil can't touch me. Anointed eyes. "Why, Ed?" And she clasped her hands together in relief. She raised her voice, overcome with gratitude. "Praise the Lord. Thank you, Lord, for protecting my husband. Thank you for making him a holy prophet. I'm so proud of you, my love. You're truly chosen by God." David's smile didn't reach his eyes as he took in his wife's joy. She looked at him with such admiration, such blind trust. She saw him as a man of God, a leader blessed by heaven itself. But he knew the truth buried deep inside, hidden behind every sermon, every miracle, every moment he spent in front of his followers as anointed, continued to praise God for her holy husband. David looked away, his heart heavy with guilt. Deep down, he knew that the devil had not come for him. In a dream, he had willingly walked into the darkness on his own, trading away his soul. Piece by piece, anointed, joy-filled voice pulled him back to the present. "My love, you are truly blessed. Our church is blessed because of you. I can feel God's presence when you preach, and to think the devil tried to come after you. You must be doing something, right? If he's that scared of you." David forced a laugh, nodding along, pretending to share her excitement. But inside, he was wrestling with himself, battling the weight of his choices. Priscilla, one of Prophet David's most loyal followers, held the car keys in her hand. Her mind made up. She believed in Prophet David's teachings and was ready to make a sacrifice for the church. She stood in front of her husband. Monday, her face full of determination. "I'm going to sell the car." Monday, Prophet David said, "If we give, God will bless us many times over. I believe that if I give this car to the Lord, He will answer my prayers and bless us with children. Maybe even triplets," she said with conviction. Monday's jaw dropped. "Are you serious?" "Priscilla, this is the car I worked hard to buy. I gave it to you as a gift for our 5th anniversary. And you want to just hand it over to that prophet? Have you lost your mind?" Priscilla's eyes narrowed, her voice unwavering. "You don't understand, Monday. This is a sacrifice for God's house. Prophet David says if we give, be blessed. Why can't you see that?" Monday let out a frustrated sigh. "Priscilla, you're talking about giving away the only car we have. How will we get around, and why are you so sure? David is even genuine. He lives in a mansion, drives fancy cars, and doesn't care if his members are struggling. You're putting all your faith in a man instead of God. Don't speak against the prophet." Priscilla's voice rose defensively. "You're just jealous of him because he has blessings. You don't. You're an unbeliever. Monday, you don't understand what it means to have faith." Monday shook his head, trying to stay calm. "Jealous. Priscilla, this isn't jealousy. It's common sense. David isn't God. No true man of God would ask people to sell everything they have and suffer while he lives like a king. Why can't you see? He's using people like you." Priscilla crossed her arms, her face turning stubborn. "You're blinded by doubt. Prophet David says sacrifice is the path to blessings. I want to show my faith. If you love me, you would support my decision." Monday clenched his fists, frustration clear on his face. "Priscilla, I do love you. That's why I'm trying to protect you from throwing away everything we have. Think about it. Think about us. Think about the family we want to build. Selling the car won't get us children. It will just make things harder." But Priscilla shook her head. "You'll never understand. I'm going to the prophet with or without your support." As she walked away, Monday felt a mix of anger, sadness, and worry. His wife was so convinced by the prophet that she was ready to give up everything. He watched her go, his heart heavy with doubts and fears, wondering if he could ever bring her back to reason on Sunday. Prophet David stood confidently at the front of the packed church, his voice booming through the hall. He looked around, his eyes resting on some of the young, wealthy men in the congregation. "Sons, come forward and give to the building of the Lord." He called out, I don't care what you do for work, whether you are a businessman or a Yahoo boy, that's not my business. Just come and let me bless you." The young men stepped forward one by one, pulling out wads of cash checks and envelopes stuffed with money. They dropped it all into the offering basket as David raised his hands, praying over them, his voice growing louder. Kubala, Kubala. He spoke in tongues in the mighty name of the Lord. "I bless these young men. I pray their pockets will never run dry. May they always have more to give. And may the Lord bless them richly," waving his hands over the young men, and the congregation cheered. Then David turned to the rest of the church, his eyes narrowing as he spoke sternly. "And to those of you who have money but are refusing to give, be warned, the wrath of God is coming for you. Don't let it be too late." The room was silent for a moment, the weight of his words hanging in the air, but the silence was soon broken by the sound of a door slamming open. The congregation turned shocked to see Monday, Priscilla's husband, storming into the church. His face was awry with anger, and his fists were clenched at his sides. "You," Monday shouted, pointing directly at Prophet David. "Stay away from my family. Stay away from my wife. I'm warning you, David. If you don't stop using her, I swear I will deal with you." The room was filled with gasps as everyone turned to look at the angry husband, Prophet David, however, remained calm, a smile creeping onto his face. He raised his hands in a gesture of peace, wanting to appear humble to the congregation. Brother, David said smoothly, his voice full of false kindness. "Calm down. We are all brothers and sisters in the Lord. There's no need for anger. We're just here to bless you and your family." But deep down, Prophet David's heart was boiling with rage. How dare this man come into his church and challenge him? He had made his plans, and no one, especially not a man, like Monday, was going to stop him. Monday stood there for a moment glaring at David, but then turned and stormed out of the church. "Priscilla, meet me at home," he shouted over his shoulder before slamming the door behind him. David watched Monday leave a cold smile spreading across his face. He didn't care about the man's threats. He had bigger plans. Prophet David turned back to the congregation and continued with his service as if nothing had happened. But inside, he was already plotting his next move, determined to keep his control over Priscilla and her money. No matter the cost, the congregation, still shaken by Monday's outburst, began to whisper to each other, but Prophet David ignored them, praying harder, speaking in tongues and asking for even more donations. David got home later that evening, his mind filled with rage. He paced around the house, not even hungry enough to eat. The words Monday had shouted at him in church echoed in his mind. How dare he challenge the great prophet David in front of the congregation? It was a humiliation. David couldn't bear in his anger. He couldn't think of a way to let it go. The idea came to him. Suddenly, he needed to deal with Monday once and for all with a deep breath. David went to his sacred office. He called out to the Great One 3 times, his voice filled with desperation. "Great One," David said, "take care of this problem for me. Kill Monday. Let him sleep and never wake up. I want him gone. It's time for him to pay for insulting me." The old mank voice echoed back from the shadows. "As you wish, David, it shall be done." David felt a chill run down his spine, but he quickly pushed it aside. He had made his decision, his power, his control. Everything was at stake. He went to bed that night, a twisted sense of satisfaction creeping over him. The next morning, news spread quickly through the town. Monday was dead. He had been found in his bed, cold and lifeless. The rumors began to spread like wildfire. Some people whispered, "I think Prophet David used his dark magic to kill him." It's the only explanation. Others, however, were quick to defend David. "No, it's the Lord who dealt with him. How dare he insult a servant of God? Like that servants of God are not to be touched by the time Sunday came around." People were still talking about Monday's sudden death. But when Priscilla walked into the church that morning, everyone fell silent. Some people stared at her in shock. "Didn't she just lose her husband?" One woman whispered. "Shek." "A foolish woman," another person muttered under their breath. "She's already back at church like nothing happened. She must be blind to keep following a man like Prophet David." Someone else said. Priscilla felt the eyes of the congregation on her as she walked up to her usual seat. She could feel their judgment, but she ignored it. In her heart, she still believed Prophet David was sent by God. No matter what anyone said, she was devoted to him. Anointed sat quietly in her room, her heart heavy with worry. Since her marriage to Prophet David, everything had changed, but not in the way she had imagined. They had been married for months now. But David had never shown her the love she had expected. He hadn't made any effort to be intimate with her, and it left her feeling confused and lonely. She had tried talking to him, but he always avoided the subject, telling her he was too busy with his work for the Lord. She couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong, and it hurt her deeply. She had everything: luxury, clothes, expensive jewelry, a beautiful house, and a life that many women would dream of. But none of it mattered. If she didn't feel loved by her husband, she felt like she was missing something important, and that emptiness was growing inside her, needing someone to talk to. Anointed decided to call her best friend Patricia. They had been friends since school, even though their lives had taken different paths. Anointed had become the wife of a powerful prophet, while Patricia was always chasing after wealthy men. Despite their differences, they had always stayed close, and Anointed knew she could confide in her Patricia. "I don't know what to do," Anointed said, when her friend answered the phone. "David hasn't even looked at me the way a husband should. We haven't had any intimacy, and I feel so alone. I don't know what's going on." Patricia laughed loudly on the other end of the line. "Oh, Anointed? Are you serious? You're complaining about not having sex. You have it all. Expensive clothes, fancy jewelry, a beautiful house, and you're married to the most powerful prophet in the country. People literally worship you. How can you be unhappy?" Anointed felt a wave of frustration wash over her. "But Patricia, it's not just about that. I feel like he doesn't care about me. We're supposed to be a team, but it feels like I'm living with a stranger. I need to feel loved, cared for. Isn't that what marriage is supposed to be?" About Patricia's voice softened, but she still didn't seem to get it. "Look, Anointed, I get it. I really do, but come on. Think about it. You have everything that most people would give anything for. You're married to a man who performs miracles. You don't have to work. You have everything handed to you on a silver platter. So why are you complaining about something so small if you're so unhappy? Just let me take your place. I'd love to have what you have." Anointed was stunned by her friend's words. "What do you mean, take my place? This isn't about material things. I want to feel special to him, like I matter. I don't want to be just another wife in his life. I want to be loved for who I am." Patricia sighed. "You're always so serious about this, honestly. If you really want something to satisfy you, why not try using some toys? You know what I mean? You're always talking about being a born-again Christian, But why should that stop you from getting your needs met? Focus on the church. Focus on your husband, his ministry. Forget about everything else. Anointed heart sank as she listened to her friend. She knew Patricia was speaking out of frustration, but the words didn't feel right. Patricia, I don't want to just focus on the church. I want a real connection with David. A marriage is supposed to be about more than just what we have or what people think of us. I want him to care for me, to love me the way a husband should. Patricia laughed again, almost mockingly. Oh, come on. You've got it all anointed. You're just being dramatic. Focus on your life, your ministry, and leave the rest behind. You're married to a powerful man, and that should be enough for you. Anointed hung up the phone, feeling more confused than ever. She had always trusted Patricia, but it seemed like her friend didn't understand what she was going through. Her life was full of luxury, but her heart was empty. She couldn't just ignore the deep longing for affection, for real love from her husband as she sat there, anointed. Wonder, is this really the life I want? She had everything in terms of wealth and status, but something was missing. Would David ever change? Could she ever get the love she needed from him? Or was she just fooling herself into believing that marriage to a powerful prophet was enough? David's father, who wanted a grandchild badly, became worried. He loved Anointed as his daughter-in-law, and had always supported their marriage. But as time passed, he started to grow concerned. He knew David was always busy with his ministry, but the silence surrounding their attempts to have a child started to weigh on him one afternoon. As David was going over some church matters in his office, his father came to visit. He sat down across from David, a concerned look on his face. David, my son. He began, his voice filled with genuine care. When will you and Anointed give me a grandchild? You know, I've been praying for this moment for a long time. I've seen the way you work so hard in the ministry, but I think it's time to think about your family. I'm getting older, and I would love to see your children running around the house. David shifted uncomfortably in his seat, his mind racing for an excuse. He had always been good at hiding things. But he knew his father's words weren't coming from a place of impatience, but from a deep longing for family. Father, it's not that I don't want to have children, David replied, trying to sound convincing. It's just that we've been focusing on the work of the Lord. You know how it is with the church. We have so many responsibilities. Sometimes I think about how much I have to do for the ministry, and I get overwhelmed. But trust me, I am praying every day that God will bless us with a child. Soon. David paused, looking at his father's face. He could see the doubt creeping in, but he quickly continued. We've been trying, Father, but sometimes it takes time. I know Anointed is just as eager as you are to have a child. I'm sure it will happen in God's time. You just have to trust me. His father stared at him for a moment, searching his face for any sign of honesty. He knew his son well and could tell when he was being truthful. David's response, though, seemed to satisfy him, at least for the moment. I trust you, my son, his father finally said with a sigh. I just hope it happens soon. I know you both have so much to offer. A child would bring so much joy to this house and to the church, too, I'm sure. But if it's God's will, it will happen. I'm praying for you both. David's heart raced as he tried to hide his nervousness. He could feel a pang of guilt in his chest, but he quickly pushed it aside. He couldn't tell his father the truth that he and Anointed were struggling. And the problem wasn't just about timing. It was about something deeper, something he couldn't bring himself to face. "Thank you, Father," David said with a forced smile. "We'll be all right. God's timing is perfect, and when the time comes, we'll share the good news with you, I promise." His father nodded, but there was still a trace of concern in his eyes. He didn't say anything more about it, but David could tell that the pressure was still there. He had to figure out a way to make this right, or else the truth might come out in a way he couldn't control, as his father left our room. David sat back in his chair, feeling a heavy weight on his chest. He had lied to his father, and deep down, he knew it wasn't the right thing to do, but what could he do? His marriage was falling apart, and he couldn't admit the truth to anyone. Not yet that night, David sat in the dark, feeling the weight of his decisions pressing down on him. His mind raced with the growing tension in his marriage since he and Anointed had married. They had not shared any intimacy. She had begun to notice his distance, and so had his father, who had started asking questions about grandchildren. David was becoming desperate. He could feel the pressure building up, and the frustration of keeping up the ACT was taking its toll on him. As he sat there, his mind kept drifting back to the Great One, the mysterious figure who had given him power. David knew he had turned to the Great One before for help, but tonight he needed something more. He needed a way to fix his marriage, to give Anointed what she wanted, and in turn, what he needed, intimacy and children. Great One. Great One. David whispered into the air, his voice shaking. "I need your help. My wife is starting to ask questions. We haven't been intimate since we married. She is growing suspicious of me. I can't keep up the lie anymore. Please, I beg you. Give me back my manhood." Suddenly, the room grew colder, and the air seemed to shift in front of David. The Great One appeared. His eyes glowed with a dark power that both terrified and comforted David. The old man's presence was overwhelming. "You have called for me, David." The Great One said in a deep, growly voice, "What is it you seek now?" David's heart raced, his voice trembling with urgency. "I need to be able to make love to my wife. I can't keep pretending that everything is fine. She wants children, and so does my father. I don't know what to do. I need my manhood back." The Great One studied David carefully, his eyes narrowing as he considered the request. "You have asked for power before, but this is different. You wish for intimacy, but in exchange, you will have to give up something precious to you. Are you willing to pay the price?" David nodded quickly, eager to solve his problems. "Yes, I am ready. Please just give me what I need. My wife deserves a child, and I need to restore our marriage." The Great One's lips curled into a dark smile. "Very well, David. I will grant you what you desire, but the price will be steep in exchange for your manhood. I will take your wife's womb. She will never carry a child again." The Great One's eyes gleamed with power. "It is the price, David, you want, intimacy and children. But if you want that, you must pay the price. Your wife's womb will be taken, and you will have the ability to father children with another woman, if you choose." David hesitated. He loved Anointed, but the pressure of his desires and his father's expectations were too much. He didn't want to lose his power, and he didn't want to live without a child of his own. "Please," he whispered, "I will do anything. Just give me back what is mine." David's heart skipped a beat. He couldn't believe what he was hearing. "No. Please, I don't want to hurt her. Just give me my manhood back. I will do anything else, but don't take her womb." The Great One chuckled darkly, then raised his hand. "It is done!" David gasped as a surge of power flowed through him. He felt his manhood return strong and restored. But as the Great One disappeared into the shadows, David also felt a strange emptiness. He knew that the price had been paid, but it wasn't until later that night when he looked at Anointed that he truly realized what he had sacrificed. The next morning, David could feel the weight of his choices. He had what he wanted, but the cost Anointed womb was something he would have to live with forever. He couldn't undo what had been done. 2 days later, David found himself deep in thought. He hadn't expected his life to turn out this way, tangled in secrets and weighed down by choices he could barely face. As he wrestled with his feelings, Anointed approached him again, frustration clear in her eyes. "David," she started firmly, "we've been married, but I feel like we're strangers. I thought things would change after the wedding, that we'd be happy and connected. But you keep pushing me away. I'm tired of feeling alone." David looked at her, torn between his love for her and the hidden truths. He couldn't bear to reveal. Her voice softened, though her eyes were still sad. "I can't live like this. I'm your wife, David. Why are you shutting me out if you can't be with me as a husband should? Maybe I shouldn't be here at all." Her words hit hard. He had focused so much on his power and position. He hadn't realized the toll it was taking on their marriage. Slowly, he reached out and pulled her close, looking deeply into her eyes. "I'm sorry," he whispered. He leaned down, placing a gentle kiss on her, for letting the warmth of that touch melt away some of the walls he'd built around himself. Anointed face softened in surprise, her frustration giving way to something gentler. Before he knew it, I was holding her tightly, feeling a flicker of the love and trust they once shared. David led her to their room, and for the first time since their wedding, they shared a true heartfelt moment together as husband and wife that night. As they lay side by side, David felt a mix of relief and regret. He had brought her happiness tonight, but he knew the shadows of his choices still loomed for now. He held her close, tightly the next day. Anointed couldn't wait to share her excitement with her best friend Patricia. As soon as she got the chance, she called Patricia over, and her eyes sparkled with joy as she began to speak. Patricia, Anointed said, smiling widely, "Last night was amazing. For the first time, David and I really connected as husband and wife. It was so special. I feel like everything is finally falling into place." Patricia laughed and shook her head with a knowing look. "See, I told you to be patient. You were so worried, but I kept telling you things will work out. You're married to a great man, and now you see he cares about you deeply. Sometimes you just need to wait." Anointed nodded, feeling relieved. "I know you're right. I was so frustrated before, but now it feels like a weight has been lifted. I finally feel close to him, like he truly cares about me." Patricia leaned back, smiling. "Enjoy this, Anointed. Not everyone has a husband who's as respected as David. Now that things are better between you two, focus on building a strong family and supporting each other. This is just the beginning of your journey together." Anointed sighed happily. "Thank you, Patricia. You always know just what to say. I am so lucky to have a friend like you." The two friends spent the rest of the day talking and laughing with Anointed, sharing more about her hopes for the future. David was in his office when his phone rang. It was his friend, and he sounded excited. "David, have you heard Pastor Jerry? Just opened a brand new church. It's huge, even bigger than a stadium. Everyone's talking about it." David's heart sank, and his face tightened with jealousy. Pastor Jerry's success burned inside him. He couldn't ask his own church members for more donations. They had already given so much for the building they were working on. But now David wanted more than ever to build a church twice as grand as Pastor Jerry's. He wanted people to talk about his church, not. Pastor Jerry's. He wanted everyone to look at him as the greatest prophet, frustrated and desperate. David called on the Great One 3 times in a cloud of dark smoke. The old man appeared, his eyes piercing and intense. "What is it you want, David?" he asked. David took a deep breath. "Great One, I need your help. There's another pastor who just built a huge church, and I want to build one twice as big. I want my church to be the greatest of all. The Great One gave a low chuckle. "Oh, David, I can give you anything you desire, but you know there's always a price." David felt a shiver run down his spine. "What's the price? This time?" he asked nervously. The Great One's eyes gleamed as he replied, "10%. Säg vad jag ber för det gonna sägas. Endast även äcker law for berbe." Seisha Odetame's widened in shock. 10, that's too much. How am I supposed to find 10 people? The Great One replied. "David, look around you. You have a church full of loyal followers. They trust you, they believe in you, and they do anything you ask. Do you want this or not?" David sat there thinking deeply about what the Great One had just said. His heart pounded with excitement and fear. The idea of having a church so big that everyone would know his name was thrilling. But 10 human sacrifices, that was a lot to ask. He looked up at the Great One who was standing there with a calm, confident smile. It was as if he knew exactly what David was thinking. "Why are you hesitating, David?" the Great One asked, in a smooth voice. "Don't you want people to see you as the most powerful prophet? Don't you want them to come from all over just to see your church?" David swallowed hard. "Yes, I do want that. I want a church that everyone talks about, one that makes me more respected than anyone else." The Great One nodded. "Then do what needs to be done. Look at your congregation. They trust you. They give you everything you ask for. 10 people. That's nothing compared to what you'll gain." David thought about his loyal followers. They loved him, trusted him, and believed in his words. They'd already given so much for the church-building project. But what if people noticed? David whispered. "What if they start to ask questions?" The Great One waved his hand dismissively. "People believe what you tell them. You are their prophet, their leader. As long as you stay calm, they won't suspect a thing. Think about it. David, this is your chance to be greater than anyone." David stared down at his hands. His mind was swirling with thoughts, his heart torn between ambition and fear. He wanted to be powerful. He wanted people to see him as the greatest prophet, but he also knew this decision would change everything. "All right," David said finally, his voice barely a whisper. "But I'll need time to find the people." The Great One smiled. Pleased? "Very well, David. Take your time. But remember, the sooner you complete this task, the sooner your dreams become reality." With that, the Great One vanished, leaving David alone in his office. Sunday morning arrived, and Prophet David stood before his eager congregation, his voice full of excitement as he announced, "We're going on an important outreach to spread the word of God in a neighboring town, but we need 10 members to join us on this mission." Without hesitation, 10 loyal members quickly volunteered, their faces lit with a mixture of pride and excitement. They saw this as a chance to serve alongside their beloved prophet, someone they deeply trusted. Some were young, full of energy and passion. Others were older, with years of dedication to the church. They gathered their belongings, preparing for what they believed would be a meaningful journey. As the group traveled, laughter and songs of worship filled the air, each person grateful for this opportunity. But as they approached a narrow road surrounded by thick trees, they suddenly encountered a blockade. A group of armed men appeared from the shadows, stopping them in their tracks. The joyous songs ceased, replaced by a tense silence, as the armed men ordered everyone out of the vehicle. "Get down now!" One of the men barked, waving his weapon as a warning. Fear flashed in the eyes of the church members. They glanced at Prophet David, expecting him to lead them or find a way to protect them. But David's face remained unreadable, as though he knew more than he was letting on. He stood back, allowing the men to take control without a word of protest. The men forced the group into the dense forest, leading them deeper and deeper until they reached a dark clearing. The silence of the night settled around them, and the group felt a growing unease as they looked at each other in confusion and fear. Without warning, the men tied up each of the church members, leaving Prophet David free. Some of the members began to pray, their voices trembling as they asked for God's protection, but David only stood there watching quietly as his followers were held down from the shadows. The Great One emerged, his presence sending a chill through the clearing. He looked at David and nodded approvingly, a sly smile on his face. "You've done well, David," the Great One said. "These sacrifices will give you the power you desire." David took a deep breath, feeling a rush of excitement mixed with guilt. He tried to ignore the fearful, confused eyes of his loyal followers. He had come too far to turn back now. One by one, each church member was taken away, their cries fading into the night as they were sacrificed, just as David and the Great One had planned when it was over. David returned to the town alone, his clothes torn and his face weary. He walked back into his church with a look of despair, as though he had barely escaped a terrible fate. The church was packed with members eager to hear the story of what had happened. David took to the pulpit, his voice shaky as he began his tale. "We were attacked by armed men on our way to the outreach. They kidnapped all of us, killed 10 of our beloved members, but by God's mercy, I managed to escape. It was only by His grace that I am standing here today." Gasps of horror filled the church as he recounted his escape. Tears streamed down the faces of some members who mourned the loss of their friends and family, unable to believe that such evil had taken place. Many praised God for saving their prophet, calling it a miracle. "God spared me so that I could continue to guide you all," David said, lifting his hands as if in gratitude to the heavens. "He has a greater plan for us, and we must stay strong in our faith." The congregation cheered, their faith renewed by David's story of survival. But deep inside, David felt a dark satisfaction. He had paid the price, and now he believed he was unstoppable. Only he and the Great One knew the truth, hidden behind his mask of holiness. After the service, 2 members of the church sat quietly in the back. Speaking in hushed tones, they had just heard Prophet David's story of how he was the only one who managed to escape when the others were kidnapped. Something about the story didn't sit right with them, and the fear in their hearts was growing. "I don't know anymore," one of them said, shaking their head the way he spoke, like he was the only one who escaped. "How is that even possible? Why did no one else make it out?" The other person nodded slowly, looking around to make sure no one was listening. "I've been feeling uneasy for a while. Ever since he started pushing for more money and the way he makes people feel like they have to donate. It's all starting to feel wrong. I came here for faith, but now it feels like we're being used." I've been feeling the same way," the other replied, their voice quiet. "I think we're in danger. I can't explain it, but something feels off. I'm starting to think it's not just the attack. That's the problem. It's him. How could God let this happen to us? Why is he the only one who survived? And why doesn't he seem to care about the other members who died? The first one said, their voice trembling with fear. The second person looked around nervously, then whispered, I think he's hiding something. All of those people gone and he's acting like a hero. It doesn't make sense. I don't trust him anymore. I don't think we're safe here. The first person looked down, clenching their fists. You're right. I can't keep pretending everything's okay. I'm done. This is the last time I'll ever come here. I can't be a part of this any longer. They both sat there, their minds racing with fear and doubt. The church was still full of people, all praising and worshiping, completely unaware of the whispers in the back. A few days later, Prophet David's grand church building project finally began. Workers came early in the morning, setting up materials and laying down the first stones. David watched with pride as his dream was taking shape. He felt powerful, important, and completely in control. That evening he arrived home in high spirits, smiling wider than he had in months. He walked into the kitchen holding a bottle of wine. Come, my wife, he said, holding the bottle up. Let us celebrate. The Lord has done marvelous things for us. Anointed looked at the bottle and frowned. But I don't drink, David. You know that I've never had alcohol before, and I don't feel right about it. David wrapped his arm around her shoulder, speaking softly. Oh, come on, my love. This is a special time for us. It's only a small drink, just to thank God for his blessings. One glass won't hurt, will it? You've stood by me through everything. Let's celebrate together, anointed. Hesitated, looking into her husband's hopeful eyes. She felt a slight doubt, but she didn't want to disappoint him. Finally, she agreed. Taking a small sip, and David poured himself a full glass. They raised their glasses together, clinking them softly to new beginnings. David said, smiling, and to all, that we are building as the evening wore on. They talked about the future, the church, and all the plans David had for them. The project filled him with so much excitement that he barely noticed Anointed quietness. As they celebrated, Anointed tried to be happy for David, but something didn't feel right. She looked at him, wondering if there was something he was hiding. She couldn't shake the feeling that there was more going on than he was telling her. Could her husband really have a secret? Or was she just overthinking things? Dear viewers, do you think Anointed will ever find out the truth about her husband's hidden life? Well, we will find out about that in the next part of the story. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this story, please like, share, and subscribe to support our channel, and don't forget to turn on notifications to catch Part 4 as soon as it's released. Stay tuned for more, and stay blessed.